This is the 75th anniversary of European Movement UK. It was spun out of European movement as a pan-European movement, largely forged by Winston Churchill and Duncan Sands. But European Movement UK, on February 16th, 1949, was pulled together by a group of men and women and many parliamentarians. The war had just finished, and organisations everywhere were starting to group together in this new vision. What do you remember from those days?
You're right to ask a question about the war. There had been 3 wars between France and Germany in 75 years. And it is of no surprise at all, thinking back, that the men and women whose life had been occupied, prisoner of war camps, whatever it may have been, had an absolute obsession. This must never happen again. Best illustrated by the Zurich speech of Winston Churchill. We must create a kind of United States of Europe. And that, to me, was the inspirational moment which charted beyond measure the future for our country. What you see in all these movements, that they were all coming together to find a way of administering Europe in a more peaceful, harmonious, profitable and prosperous way. That was how we saw the future.
What do you think, knowing back in the day in the 40s and 50s, the visions that were being laid out about Europe by those that were championing it, what would they think of Europe today?
I would say this. They have transformed in half a century the behavioral pattern of Europe from one of conflict, one of disunity. Now, have they done enough? We've never done enough in politics. There's always an ambition and an appetite. But by and large, there is one other thing that I think they would feel. There's a hole in the middle. And they would be sad that we have gone. Because we are important historically as a voice for some of the smaller countries, as someone who has standards which are often admired across Europe. And I think they just regard it as an act of self-annihilation. The European movement is an important part of the armoury of protest about Britain's position outside its own natural power group. And the audience is there because the younger generation know they've been deceived, they have been excluded in a way they don't want to be excluded, and as they become increasingly vocal and numerous in the democratic process, they will want change back.
What do you think that we can take from the 1940s through to the 70s, that whole new shift and evolution towards pro-Europeanism? What do you think we can gather up and drop back into the conversation now to rekindle that passion and help get the next generation fighting for a future for this country?
Vision. The belief that this country has, by its history, by its sense of tolerance, by its practices politically, has a record which is of huge value to humankind. We need to be at the centre of one of the great power blocks, not excluded from it, because that is where our future lies, and just as important, the future of mankind.